All right, blessings, everyone. Welcome to our Parasha for this evening. Tonight, we are going to be looking at Parashat Kaye Sarah, or the life of Sarah. Kaye Sarah, or the life of Sarah. Sorry?
Hi, Sarah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, Sarah. Thanks for the correction. You know, it's a good thing when you can be corrected and not. Many people have an issue with being corrected, but yeah, thank the Lord. All right. And so, hi, Sarah. And I'm going to send this to you guys. And again, I want you to put this on your Facebook page so that people who want to join in, they will get a link and they'll be able to share this on their page as well. And so, but then look, don't just share it. I want you to share it, and then I want you to like it, then share it. All right. And so we're looking forward to a great discussion tonight, guys, because this is some pretty amazing. You know, I had to read the Parasha or listen to it several times. Number one, I was listening to the wrong. I was listening to the wrong thing, and I was like, man, this. I think I was listening to chapter 11, 1 Kings chapter 11, and I was like, wow, I don't see the connection in this, and so I had to switch up and listen to a whole different chapter, which was the correct chapter, chapter 1, and so I was like, wow, this is just not making sense. And so I did. I finally got to the right chapter, and was able to get onto the Parasha, and yeah, it was. I was trying to make sense of it all week, but it just was not making any sense to me, and so yeah. But I finally did get onto the right chapter, and we're going to be sharing that in just a second here. Don't forget, I want you to take our link, and I want you to go ahead and share that on your Facebook page. You know, people, I get inboxed, and people share how they've been blessed by the discussion. And so, yeah, go ahead and like it on your page, then share it on your page and a friend's page as well. All right, blessings. I want to deal with a few connections that I saw here. I love going from the Brit, the Brit Hadashah, and then the Haftarah, and then going back to the Torah. And so I want to deal with it's a couple of questions that I want to throw out there. And I'm so frustrated with myself, guys, because I had all of my tabs just ready to go. And unfortunately, I deleted, I don't know if I deleted them or just closed them all, but I'm going to try my best to get them back. And I think I have one here. Oh, yes. So the first question I had, guys, was in, it came from the Torah. And my question was, how, and what I'm sharing here is, here, let me do this because I want to go to the scriptures. It's going to be found in, I believe, Genesis chapter 23. So if you guys can go to Genesis 23, I want want to ask a question here, and I'm just curious to see what you guys think. And it's in Genesis chapter 23. Well, I said Genesis chapter 232. Wow. And so Genesis chapter 23, and I believe it's when Abraham was going to bury his wife. And I think that the question that I had came from, I believe, hold on. Yeah, so that he bowed down himself to the people of the land. Remember, he was bowing himself down to Hittites or Hittites, and they were in the land of Canaan. All right, and so I think I passed it here. Oh, here we go. Here we go. So Genesis chapter 23 and verse 12, and I'm going to read just a couple verses here. It says, and Abraham bowed himself down. Wait a minute, is that the one? Goodness. Wait a minute. Hold on, guys. Be patient with me, please. It's an awesome question. I think it is. I think it's an awesome question. Here we go. Verse 10. And Ephron dwelt among the children of Heth. And now we know that Heth, the Hittites, come from these people. And Ephron, the Hittite, answered Abraham in the audience of the children of Heth, even of all that went to the gate of his city, saying, nay, my Lord, hear me. The field I give thee, and the cave that is in therein, I give it to thee. In the presence of the sons of my people, I give I it thee. Bury thy dead. But then, if we go back up just a little bit to verse 7, it says, Abraham stood up and bowed himself to the people of the land, even to the children of Heth, which are Hittites. And I thought this was super interesting too. Here we go, watch. He bowed himself to the people of Heth, or the children of Heth. And then in verse 8, and he communed with them, saying, if it be your mind that I should bury my dead out of my sight, hear me, he said. He said, hear and understand me, and entreat me to Ephron, the son of Zohar. Verse 9, that he may give me the cave at Machpelah, which he hath, which is in the end of his field, for as much money as it is worth. He shall give it to me as a possession of a burying place amongst us. Verse 10, and Ephraim dwelt among the children of Heth, and Ephraim the Hittite. Okay, so he's there speaking to the children of Heth, which are the Hittites. He says, Ephraim the Hittite, he answered Abraham. So he heard Abraham, and then he answered Abraham in the audience of the children of Heth, even of all that went in at the gate of his city, saying, nay, my Lord, hear me. I read this. The field I give thee, the cave that is in therein, I give it to thee in the presence of thy sons, of my people. I it to thee, bury thy dead. And then verse 12, and Abraham bowed himself before the people of the land, and he spoke unto Ephron in the audience of the people, verse 13, of the land, saying, but if thou wilt give it, I pray thee, hear me. I will give it to thee. I will give thee money for the field. Take it from me. Take it of me, and I will bury my dead there. And Ephraim answered Abraham. Here it is. This Hittite answering Abraham, the son of Heth, the Hittite answered Abraham again, saying unto him, my Lord, hearken unto me. The land is worth 400 shekels of silver. So that's another question I have. What is it betwixt me and thee? He said, what is it between me and you? Bury thy dead. Bury therefore thy dead. And Abraham hearkened unto Ephraim, and Abraham weighed to Ephraim the silver, which was 400 shekels. Does anyone know how much 400 shekels is worth today? That would be interesting to find out. Which he had named in the audience of the sons of Heth, the Hittites, or the Hittites, 400 shekels of silver, current money with the merchants. That's interesting. But I want to stop right there, and I want to deal with this, guys. This is what I want to deal with. Does anyone know how Abraham, now we got to get into what language did Abraham speak? How many think Abraham was speaking Hebrew? What language was Abraham speaking? And my second question is, if Abraham was speaking Hebrew or Paleo-Hebrew, how did the Hittites understand him? Were they speaking Hebrew also? Because remember when the Lord divided up all these people at the Tower of Babel, he said he divided their languages. And so he divided them so they could not understand each other. But we see here that Abraham and the Hittites, or the Hittites, are speaking and communicating and understanding each other. Is the Bible contradicting himself? Did or did not Yah divide the languages so that they could not understand one another? What language were they speaking? What say you guys? What do you guys think?
No, baby.
I would say Aramaic and something with similar root, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's interesting. Anyone else?
No, Hebrew. I don't know what languages, but I know a lot of them had similar bases, right? Or roots.
Okay, that's an awesome point right there. That stuck out to me, guys, because I was like, wait a minute. How are they communicating so easily and understanding and having comprehension of each other's language? And what was that language?
And maybe Abraham or the Hittite, maybe they were able to understand two different languages.
Okay. All right. That's definitely a possibility.
Or they could have had a translator.
Okay, but they were speaking directly to each other because it says that he answered. He says, "Nay, my Lord, hear me." They were speaking like directly to one another. They were communicating, interacting with one another. If you look at verse 8, it says he communed with them, saying, all right, if it be your mind that I should bury my dead. Okay, and so Abraham was communing and fellowshipping with them, and he began just to talk to them. And so it's possible that, like Sister Denise said, they probably had, a language that had the same base, or, same type of roots, or shared something similar to each other. Or, like Brother Mark said, it could be that they knew more than one language. And if that's the case, what languages were they speaking? And that brings a good point up. When did Paleo-Hebrew began to be spoken? Were they speaking Paleo-Hebrew during this time, Abraham? Or what do we know about that? Any questions, any comments?
I wanted to bring up something to you.
Go ahead.
So, even, for example, if you look at the other nations that's around Abraham, because he went to Egypt too, right? Remember? And he spoke to them.
Mm-hmm.
So it says the ancient Egyptian is considered to be a branch of the Afro uh Asiatic language family, meaning that the ancient Egyptians
The what
has,
language? Wait, hold on. The what language family?
let's see, let me find it.
I didn't hear that.
It's an Asiatic language family, meaning the ancient Egyptians has similars to the Akkadian, um, and it's Arabic and Hebrew, and it's quite different from the Indo-European languages like English, French, and German. So that's
That's
something.
interesting, brother.
Yeah, I'm gonna send this to you right now.
I
Just,
think
Cool.
it was Aramaic.
Now
yeah,
look what I found. Look what I found now. I want to show you guys this. And the source, I lost the source. I thought I had the source. Well, I had the source, but for some reason it deleted. Uh, anyway, I do want to share this with you. It says there is no difference between Old Hebrew, also called Paleo Hebrew alphabet, and the Phoenician alphabet. Both of these alphabets are identical. You guys remember Brother David taught us that when we were first taking Hebrew? That was a long time ago, but I remember Brother David sharing this with us. It says both of these alphabets are identical, the Paleo Hebrew and the Phoenician. He says, and below are images of the letters, the Beit and the Hey, taken from Old Hebrew or Paleo Hebrew and Phoenician inscriptions from ancient, or from about 800,000, 800 BC, Canaanite languages, a group of northern, central, or northwestern Semitic languages, including Hebrew, Moabite, Phoenician, and Punic. They were spoken in ancient times in Palestine. Now remember, Palestine was the area of the Canaanites on the coast of Syria and scattered colonies elsewhere around the Mediterranean. And we know that the Canaanites, we know it because it says it here, the Canaanite languages. Okay, and so we know that the Canaanites was the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, all these different ites. And so the Hittites were one of those Canaanite groups that spoke these languages, this Paleo Hebrew and Phoenician. But look at the Paleo Hebrew and the Phoenician. The Beit and the Hey, they look exactly the same. Do you guys see that? And so is it possible that we know that from our Parasha that Abraham did not want his son Isaac to intermarry with the Canaanites. We know that he said no, not them, no, find someone from from my land, from my people. And so that's an interesting topic too. But that this connection to me is huge because we know that the Canaanite languages are mentioned here, Hebrew, Phoenician, and I think these Semitic languages, like Sister Janine said, they have some sort of not only a similar root or similar base, but they even have the same letters. And so I thought that was very interesting that they were able to communicate with each other like that. And so let's see, I think Brother Mark sent something here.
hey, you guys remember how David says, even though he knows Hebrew really well.
Mark, is this what you sent me right here, bro? This one?
Yeah. So,
Okay.
David
Sorry
knows
about that.
Hebrew really well, and he can understand Aramaic, and he can read it a little bit, but it's easy for him to learn Aramaic because of Hebrew, because it has similar roots. You know what I'm saying? So he can understand what somebody's saying, somebody has a hard time writing it. So have similar words. Like Lila has a similar word in Aramaic that's close to, they're gonna sound the same.
Oh yeah, I took Aramaic in getting my bachelor's at Cal State Long Beach. I thought that was pretty interesting, and the letters are similar, but they're quite different too. I was looking around to see if I had some old assignments that, but yeah, Aramaic is definitely one of the Semitic languages. Also, it's not listed here, but it definitely is. I thought that was just interesting that they were able to communicate with one another and completely interact, considering the Lord had mixed the languages and he had divided their tongues earlier in the book of Genesis. So, but even in that, there's no contradiction, because even if the languages were divided, they definitely could have had similar roots, similar bases. And we know that to be true based on looking at this. Old Hebrew, they had the same lettering as the Phoenician, which is a Canaanite language and Semitic language. So very interesting, very interesting. All right. So that was my introduction to our lesson. And we're going to open it up for everyone else to share. And so what other connections did you guys see? I saw a huge one with the death of, so this is from the Torah and then from the Brit Hadashah, the death of Abraham and how he chose Isaac. And then also in 1 Kings chapter 1 with the death of David and how he chose Solomon. When they were saying, well, he has older brothers, but he chose Solomon. And so there's something about the connection between Abraham and David where they chose these men, these sons to reign instead. And so I thought that was a pretty interesting connection too. All right. Blessings. What say you?
Hey, blessing. In Genesis chapter 23, I just wanted to just say something right here that I believe that culturally the those who in ancient time and some cultures today, when someone dies, they mourn for they're dead for a long time. I think even Martha's telling me that they mourn for their dead for like a year. Babe, that's what you said? If it's your husband, if it's your husband in the Ghanaian culture, they'll mourn for her husband if they pass for 1 year.
Oh,
If
wow.
everybody in the community would understand it. I think you will wear all black, right? For 1 year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I think here, even in the Torah, I gotta find it, but there's something going on when somebody passes. They mourn for Moses for like 30 days or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
They moved on. But the mourning for the dead was, so we mourn for our dead for like a day or 2 or 3.
Maybe, right.
And then, so I'm just saying, I just want to bring that out there. But if something else comes to me, which it is, I'm gonna get back to you. I just want to make it real brief.
Okay. Yeah, we mourn, depending on who it is in our family, you know what I mean? If it's a parent or if a parent has a child that has passed on before them, it could be longer. It could be like years where people are mourning and still like grieving over. And then it depends on how that person was, how their life ended as well, that, could contribute to how long. And it depends on, again, the relationship, like Sister Martha or Brother Mark was saying, Sister Martha said, if it's someone like a husband. And so in this culture, it depends on, that relationship you have with that person. The history, the memories that could, determine how long it could be. Yep.
And also I want to say this. You know how like today where a lot of people will lose a loved one or somebody, maybe a child, and then they'll turn they'll just say, y'all can't be real, there's no way he can be truly a good, a good God if he let this happen.
Yeah.
And they turn their faith is shaken, and then they might even walk away.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna tell you, unless somebody can show me, I haven't found one place when somebody died, like, Aaron's sons. I can't find no place where somebody died and then they stopped believing. I cannot at one place. And today, someone can die, and somebody's faith can be shaken. I've heard people just say, you know what? Yeah, I don't. How could a God allow this? Cancer. But today, I mean, the scriptures, people were passed, and their faith will be strong. I just wanted to bring that out too. That I haven't found nobody. Can't think of no example of somebody who turned their back or who stopped believing because they lost somebody.
Blessings, brother. When you said that, well, anyone else want to comment on that particular point Brother Mark is making? Anyone have something they would like to say about that? Because I have something that immediately jumped to my mind when Brother Mark was sharing that. Does anyone else want to chime in on that before I share?
You're about to share about your Lammy backing on Mark?
Yeah. I was asking, does anyone else want to lay me back on what Brother Mark just said before I do?
No.
All right. So what came to my mind, anyone else? I'm sorry. Anyone else? Okay. Well, what came to my mind was this passage here. After Yeshua's death on the cross, and if you remember before his death, while he was on the cross, remember Peter, and remember what Yeshua said about Peter, he was going to deny him 3 times. And that surely did happen. Peter started cussing, just out of character. And then Peter, instead of doing what the Lord had told them to do, look what John 21:3 says. It says, Simon Peter saith unto him, this is after the death of Yeshua. Let me show you real quick there. So actually it's in chapter 20. And so, we have the death, the empty tomb. And instead of Peter, what did the Lord tell the disciples to do after his death? Did he give them any specific instructions? Because Peter, look what Peter did. Instead of going to share the gospel, and, the Lord had been telling them, I'm going to be leaving, I'm going to be dying, I'm going to be, going to the cross. But look what Peter did. It says, not just Peter, but after these things, Jesus showed himself again to the disciples at the Sea of Tiberias. On this wise, he showed himself. Wait a minute. Oh, yeah. They were together, Simon Peter and Thomas, called Didymus, and Nathaniel and Cana in Galilee, and the sons of Zebedee, and the 2 other of his disciples. Simon Peter said unto them, I'm going fishing, man. They remember he had called them. He said, you know what? You will no longer be. He says, now you're going to be fishers of men. But Peter went back to his old life and his old occupation instead of staying straight and becoming a fisher of men. He says, I'm going fishing. I'm going back to do what I used to do. They say unto him, we also are going to go with you back to what we used to do. Forget about, being fishers of men. We're going to go back to fishing, casting our nets. And it says they went forth and entered into a ship immediately. They was like, man, we done. He's dead. We don't know what happened. He said he was going to do this. He was, the son of Yah. Even John said, behold, here's the Lamb of God that takes away the sins of the world. But when he died, they all said, you know what? We're going back to fishing, man. I'm not. And so in a sense, when they straightway got into a ship immediately that night. And so immediately after Yeshua's death on the cross, remember, they had to get his body into the grave before the Sabbath, before Shabbat. And so they had to, before sundown, because you couldn't bury, or you couldn't bury someone, or you couldn't leave someone's body on the cross during Shabbat. And so they immediately that night, they went back fishing and they caught nothing. But when the morning was come, Jesus stood on the shore, but the disciples didn't even know him. Then Jesus said unto them, children, have you not any meat? They answered him, no, we didn't catch anything. And that's when he told them to go cast their net. They didn't even know who it was. And it says, let's see, verse 6, it says, they cast therefore, and now they were not able to draw it for the multitude of fish. All right. He told them to go, cast your net again. And they had a multitude of fish. And it says, therefore the disciples in verse 7, whom Jesus loved, saith unto Peter, is it the Lord? Now when Simon Peter heard that it was the Lord, he girt his fisher's coat unto him, for he was naked. Who was naked? we don't know if that's actually in the text, but it says he was naked, and then cast himself into the sea. And the other disciples came in a little ship, for they were not far from land, but as it were 200 cubits, dragging the net of fish. And so it goes on, and it talks about how Peter and all the disciples, after Yeshua died on the cross, they went back to fishing. Do you think that could be a kind of denying? We know Peter denied him while he was being crucified. But this, Peter, they went back to fishing. It says immediately that night after his death, they went back to fishing. Does that kind of signify them not believing? What do you guys think?
I would say, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, if you go to chapter 20, it's interesting because it shows that they believe there, but I just can't make the connection of what's their behavior going on in 21. Because in 20,
what verse are you in, my brother?
The whole chapter. If you read the whole chapter, it appears that, he shows up to Mary Magdalene, then to the 12. They all see him. Thomas, them say, if I don't see him for myself, and I feel the wounds, I won't believe. Then all that whole conversation. So there's a connection there where they see him, but maybe, I'm just trying to make a connection between chapter 20 and 21, because in 20, it appears that, there's enough evidence for them to believe, but I don't understand why, like you said in 21,
right?
Why behavior is different. So
it's different.
So I would say that's just a part of grief in itself.
Say it one more time, sister.
I would say it's a part of grief and disbelief. You got to keep yourself busy. Laugh to keep from crying. They had to do something. I wouldn't say it meant that they didn't believe no more. They just, probably need to take their mind off of it some kind of way.
Okay. Yeah, because that was an interesting point, Brother Mark, say where he says, no one really denied like after a death, but then my mind immediately went to the disciples in chapter 21 after they just went fishing again. I was like, man, were there any instructions that the Lord gave them in what to do after his death? That would be the question.
Yeah, I guess I was also mainly talking about like in our time how like I be hearing like it'll be like a year, 2 or 3.
Mm-hmm.
It used to believe, and it's like, yeah, I totally like, yeah, I don't believe in God. They don't even have their whole life. It's not that they, you have somebody like speak to them about God. They just totally like, yeah, I'm just not there. Like, it's no, they're even making excuses saying it's no way that he is real because da 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 da. They're pushing back. And then you'll give a testimony about, you'll say, I understand where you stand. And you'll go back, you'll give them a good, you'll approach them with logic or reason too. Like you'll say, yeah, you'll give them a good, a view on how to see the situation, but they already been in it. Like, how, why would he kill babies? And, they're just going off with all that type of stuff. Like, and why would he do this? And it's like, and why would he allow this to happen? They're trying to find apparent contradiction, but they just went totally left, and they're just really one thing just allowed them to like, they say I would say I'm agnostic, or they might say I'm an atheist now. I'm talking about like that. I'm talking about that. They used to believe, and then I know somebody else. They said this. I used to believe, but then I started seeing all these hypocrites in church, and now I'm just, it's no way it can be real. And they just totally, they're turned off. I was saying 21. I gotta look at it myself too. Yeah, because I don't understand how 20 and 21 connects like that. It just seems like they're kind of like, I mean, and this is my initial. In 21, it kind of seems like, okay, they see the Lord in 20, but it seems like the Lord isn't with them. So the Lord's with them in chapter 20, but the Lord isn't with them in chapter 21 yet. So when they're not around him, it's kind of like, you know, they just kind of like started doing their own thing. Just so, they kind of say, I'm just going to go back doing it because, he's not here. If he was here, because you see when Peter was around him, even though he denied it, I'm saying you've seen how sometimes the best of him will come out. Like he says, you believe because the Lord, because my Father has revealed it to you. I mean, you see all this good stuff that's happening with Peter when Christ is there. I'm talking about, you see a moment where the Lord isn't there, but then he pops back up, and then after what happened, because he rose already, he sees him again. He said, "If you love me, do you love me, Peter?" And it's like, I do. And it's like, yeah, that's already, this Lord already. So he has another conversation with him, and I'm just talking about a situation where, like, I haven't seen nobody like Job. I haven't seen like somebody like Job turn his back, or I haven't seen somebody like when David lost his child through, the one he lost. Yeah, it was a David or someone, they lost their baby. Yeah, David lost his child. Yeah, so like, and it's like he didn't turn his back on y'all. Or you didn't see like how Aaron, how y'all said, do not tear your clothes. Yeah, when Nathan, what's his name? Aaron's sons died. Aaron, Aaron didn't turn his back. I'm talking about stuff like that where
was it Nadab and Abihu?
Correct. And when Ruth, no, Naomi, when Naomi lost her husband and her son, and she said, she was hurt, but you didn't see her like totally like, I don't believe. I'm just gonna like, there's no way he can be real, so I'm just gonna serve the God of the Moabites, and just fully just, that's what I'm talking about, like hardcore, just turn their back on Yah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting point. But the reason why I say that is because when I look at Matthew chapter 4, when they first called the disciples, when Yeshua first called the disciples, it says in verse 18, Matthew chapter 4, and Jesus walking by the seashore or the Sea of Galilee, he saw two brethren, Simon, called Peter, and Andrew, his brother, casting nets, for they were fishers. And he said unto them, he said, follow me, and I will make you fishers of men. And so straightway, 20 and 22 are very interesting. Straightway, immediately, they left their nets. They left them, and they followed him. And then it says, going on there from, he called two others, and he called some more. He saw them mending their nets, some more fishermen. And then 22 again, and they immediately left the ship and their father, and they followed him. But then when we go back to 21, we see a different kind of behavior, is all I'm saying. We see them going back to this behavior that they had before being called. What did I say, 19? Yeah. Oh, wait. Was it Matthew? No, I think it was John. Sorry. So they went back to, I think it was 21:19. This behavior hey, that's not it. But yeah, they went back to this behavior that they had before Yeshua called them. So I thought that was just an interesting point to look at. But excellent point. Anyone else would like to make some connections between the Brit Hadashah, the Haftarah, and the Torah?
Yes. So I was trying to find some connections between First Kings and the Parasha. I have a lot of random notes here.
Okay.
One of the things that stood out to me, or that I noticed, was that when Abraham passed away, it said that Ishmael and Isaac buried him in the cave of Machpelah. And it made me think, like, oh, they came together to bury their dad, even though Ishmael was sent away. And that made me question if they had any other type of relationship with each other, or if it's like how we do nowadays, where we have our, impromptu funeral family reunions,
Right.
at the repast, because we don't really mess with each other no more after, a certain age. And, it's unfortunate, but it is, something in our communities that happens fairly often, especially because we come from such large families with different baby daddies and everybody a cousin if you're from Oakland, stuff like that.
Right.
But I don't know, that just kind of stuck out to me, that Ishmael and Isaac both buried him. And then I was thinking about how he was so adamant about, Abraham was so adamant about Isaac having a wife from his people. And, he made him, his servant, put his hand under his thigh and do the oath. But, during that whole dramatic scene, because I listened to it and I used the dramatic version, it made it seem like he was on his deathbed. So I went back and was doing a whole bunch of math to see how old was who when everybody passed, when Sarah passed, and all this stuff. So I got all these ages that I had listed up because I was trying to figure it out. And then I had to go back and forth between some things just to kind of make sense of it all. So it appears that when Abraham asked him to go find him a wife before he found Rebecca, I'm assuming it was somewhere, after his mom died. Because when he got Rebecca, he had said, he took her into his mother's tent and he took her as his wife, and he was comforted in his mom's death, right?
Right.
So I was trying to figure out those connections. I do know she was 127 when she died. Isaac was 37 years old, but later it says that Isaac was 40 years old when he took Rebecca as his wife. So I'm assuming it was in between, after his mom passed away and him actually making that travel to go find Rebecca and bring her back. So that was another thing. Hold on, because my notes are so random.
I want to mention something while you're looking, but Ishmael's mom did the same thing. She didn't find a woman, a wife from the Canaanites, but she went all the way to Egypt to find a husband or a wife for Ishmael. I thought that was interesting too.
Well, she was banned from Abraham, so she probably was just doing her own paternal thing and went back to her family side. It makes sense. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's what I was going to say too. Okay, so in First Kings, right?
Okay.
In First Kings, my first question that I had wrote down was, where did it go? Sorry. Okay, so verse 9, it said he invited all his brothers, the king's sons, and all royal officials of Judah, talking about Adonijah, because he exalted himself to be a king while King David was old and on his deathbed, pretty much. So I'm taking this context as, okay, he's got this Shumanite woman over here to keep him warm. He's old, he's about to pass away. So it sounds like he on his deathbed as well. Now, Adonijah exalted himself to be the king. Like, he's self-proclaimed and he had some followers, but he wasn't inviting certain people. So my first question was, whose brothers, and were they Adonijah's brothers? So I had to dig to find out. Yes, that was David's son. That was one of his sons. Said he was a son of his mother, but because I also didn't get why it was said that Adonijah's father never reprimanded him for doing those things. So that was that made me assume that his father knew what he was doing. But at the time, I didn't even realize that David was his father. So I had to dig to figure out that King David was his father, and that he was the fourth son, right? So I'm going back and forth, reading through all these things, and I realized, Adonijah did kind of, it's like mutiny, if you will.
Yeah, I'm gonna exalt myself. You see that? Right,
but Solomon was supposed to build the temple per Yah, right? He gave those instructions to David himself. So I think the connection for me here was how Isaac was the second born after Ishmael, because of Hagar and them. And then even after that, he had Keturah and had a bunch of other sons. But you know what Abraham did? He listened to his wife when Ishmael and them was funking, she was feeling some kind of way. He said, go on and listen to your wife. Go on and listen to her, Abraham, send her away. Don't worry, I'm going to bless him too. But you know what? He didn't have to tell him again. He sent them Keturah's sons. He sent them away with gifts, and he gave everything to Isaac because that's who was promised to have. That was his seed that was supposed to be promised. But I'm looking at David over here who got these other kids. He had like 20 kids. With the different concubines. I went and looked up all these names of these kids. Adonijah was the fourth born, and Solomon was the 10th born with Bathsheba, right? So I was like, you know what? It would have been a mutiny prevented if, the households weren't so mixed up like that. All these different baby mamas and these jealous other siblings. And a lot of times it comes up that the firstborn has the right. Right. And it came up even in the next couple of parashas that's coming up. He gonna it's gonna be prophesied in the next parasha about the twins in Rebecca's room. The second is gonna be greater than the first. You know what I'm saying? Even down to the next couple of generations is gonna have this whole thing where the firstborn is supposed to have the birthright. Even with Leah and Rachel. It's all these birthrights that are coming up, but y'all use who he want to use. That's really what's happening.
That's it.
I don't know. It was a lot. My notes are all over the place, so I probably had questions, but I kind of answered them because I had to dig. So
that's some good insight you're bringing out with the different sons and how Solomon was the 10th. I mean, he was way down in the line. He was way far away from having the birthright. you know, but that is very interesting too. When Adonijah, though, like you're saying, you know, got kind of prideful and was like, look, I'm about to take over. I'm doing this. And you know what's interesting though? Also, and I think this is maybe off topic, but what's also interesting about Adonijah's rising up like that, you see Adonijah and his supporter, Joab. Joab was, one of Adonijah's supporter, and see, this is interesting. Joab supported David. He was loyal to David. But see, this is the interesting thing, guys. People can pretend to be loyal to you, but they're not loyal to your wishes and desires. Oh my goodness. See, that's a whole different ball game. They could appear like they're loyal to you, but you know when they're loyal, when they adhere to your wishes and your desires. And that's what Joab was not. And I thought that was interesting how when Adonijah tried to rise up on his dad, that he had people around him that could have been loyal to David, but could have been looked at as being loyal to David, but they weren't loyal to David's desires, because he didn't desire for Adonijah to be the king or to take over.
Who, David?
Yep.
It wasn't his desire. It was Yah who told him Solomon was going to build his temple. That was it.
Right. But see, that's what I'm saying. People you think that they're loyal to you until you start speaking the things that God wants, the things that Yah wants. That's when you know, and you could see where people's loyalties really lie. Because Joab was fully loyal to Adonijah in trying to help him override his father. I think the text says that they followed and they helped Adonijah.
Yeah, it was a couple of them that did.
Yeah.
Some of them
Taking
didn't.
up on David.
You know what I was wondering is why it said, why would Bathsheba need to save herself and her son? That's what Nathan had presented to her when he wanted to bring it to King David's attention.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm wondering why they would feel like she needed, like, what do they think would happen? Because she was a wife, she wasn't a concubine. I mean, it was messed up how he got her as a wife,
right?
But where is the scripture? She said something about they will be looked at as offenders or something. And like I said, he was the 10th son.
It's in 1 Kings chapter 1.
Yeah.
Let me see.
I have to look right now. I don't know.
While you're looking, I want to deal with that. These helpers of Adonijah against King David. Think of King David, that people may be loyal to you at the beginning of your reign, at the beginning, but man, at the end, you really see where people's true loyalties lie. That's why, man, people can say, oh, it's not about how you start, it's about how you finish. And, you may think people are in your corner at the beginning, but let time pass to see if they really are on your side, if they really support not just you, but support what the Lord is doing through you. That's huge, man. And I think a lot of people, they may front in the beginning. They may pretend in the beginning to try to get brownie points and try to get close to you. And as soon as you're weak, like David, then they rise up and show their true colors. That's exactly what happened to David.
I found the scriptures.
All right.
1 Kings 12 was 1 and the other one was 21.
Oh, in a different chapter. Okay, so let me
no, 1 Kings 1.
Oh, verse 12.
Verse 12 and verse 21. Yeah.
Okay, let me put it up here. So 12 and 21. Okay, so here's 12.
Is now, wait, is that the right one? Yeah.
Is that it?
This is when Nathan came in. I guess if you start at 11, then Nathan said to Bathsheba, the mother of Solomon, have you not heard that Adonijah, the son of Haggith, has become king, and David, our Lord, does not know it? And then 12 said, now therefore come, let me give you advice that you may save your own life and the life of your son, Solomon. So that's making me think, what, is Adonijah going to kill his brother?
Absolutely.
That's crazy.
Absolutely. He was ruthless. Now watch this. Adonijah may not have done it, but his supporters would have done it. They definitely would have did that dude in.
And I mean, I get that evil type of hatred and jealousy, you know. And 21 says, otherwise it will come to pass when my Lord, the king, sleeps with his fathers, talking to King David when he dies, that I and my son Solomon will be counted offenders. But why would they be counted offenders is what I'm.
Because they knew that they were next, that Solomon was next in line.
So it was mutiny. It was intentional.
Absolutely, it was a mutiny. And man, it was worse than a mutiny because they were in the family. See, you could understand if it was people on the outside, but this is in the family. See, guys, listen. This is so deep, man. You could deal with outside folk coming against you, backstabbing. You can handle that. But you know what hurts even more is when it's in when the folk that really do you in are the folk that are in your family. The ones you ate with, the ones you spent money with, the ones you spent time with, the ones you grew up with, the ones that when you get older, they've been harboring all of this anger and envy. One of our most greatest poets said, oh, goodness, I lost it, man. Oh no. Goodness, I lost it. I'll get it back. But yeah, this thing in this family, man, just totally engulfed and had bitterness and envy. And it's just ridiculous how these things happen. It happens today. Let someone pass away. See how people fight over the house. See how people fight over property, fight over money, fight over this, fight over that. I mean, they will turn on you like a dime. This is still happening. Yeah. Oh, yes. All right. Anyone else? What say you? What you want to lay me back on that? Or you want to bring up something else? Because I'm still trying to think of this poet's oh goodness. Oh, I know what it is. One of our greatest poets, Ice Cube. Now, all this stuff is not good. He hit it right on the nail. He said, coming up is just in me, but the Black community is full of envy. Too much backstabbing. And he goes on and on, but he's articulating exactly what's happening here in the scriptures. That you will have people, because of envy and jealousy, they will put their own brother and their mother-in-law, their lives in danger. That's just completely envious. Yeah, I had to quote that. Yeah. There's a great poet for that particular, it fits. All right, anyone else? Anyone else? Now, how does that compare with First Kings? How do we compare or contrast that with Abraham and Solomon with Ishmael? Is there any kind of parallels or differences that we can see in those issues? We know Abraham, he passed on too. Was there any issues with Isaac and Ishmael? But like you said, sister, the difference is Ishmael and Isaac came together, which is different from Adonijah and Solomon. They had to run for their life. They would be counted as offenders. Now let's see what offenders is that in the Greek or in the Hebrew here. This is now we know what offenders are now, but they would be counted as offenders. Sinful. They will be counted as sinful and worthy of condemnation. That they offended, they sinned against. That the Adonijah said, you're sinning against me. This birthright thing is not going the way it should go. You're sinning. You're just sinful. So that's interesting because a lot of people, guys, they will try to correct you. They will try to put you in your place because they think you've sinned when you're just following what the Lord wants you to do. Now we could apply that. We could definitely apply that to today's world. If you call out homosexuality, if you call out any kind of sin, people will flip the script on you and label you as the sinner, you as the offender. You see how that works? And I'm gonna say it right now. Look, listen, it's homosexual. I disagree with Charles Barkley. Homosexuality is not a choice. I'm sorry, homosexuality is a choice. Sorry, it is a choice. It is not just like I make a choice to date women. Well, not anymore. I'm happily married. I'm dating one woman. Praise the Lord. Hallelujah. All praise to the Most High. But that's a choice. It's a choice that I made. But all of a sudden, people who choose to engage in other activities, it's not a choice. No. And when you do that, you will be labeled, just like they did Solomon, you'll be labeled as an offender. You ready for that? He says, otherwise it shall come to pass when my Lord King, the king, shall sleep with his fathers, that I and my son will be counted as sinners. You see that? And for what? Because they're following the Lord's plans, his ideas, his will. Absolutely. Blessings, man. I feel like I'm taking up all the connections. Anyone else? What say you, man? I know you guys have some great, interesting connections. We want to hear them. We want to hear what the Lord has put on your heart to share. Anyone? What say you? All right. Blessings. we're going to conclude our parasha tonight. I'm so glad we had an opportunity to share in these connections. We look forward to the next parasha, and I'm just grateful, man, that we had an opportunity to share tonight. And so we're thankful, and we look forward once again to what the Lord is going to be doing through you, how the Lord is going to bless you, how the Lord is going to increase you, how the Lord, and when I say increase, I'm saying increase your understanding, your knowledge, your passion for his will to be done on earth as it is in heaven through you. He's going to increase your capacity to have his will being done through you. I'm excited when I think about that, to see how that's going to look, to see what's going to transpire. And so we look forward to seeing you once again next Tuesday, this coming Tuesday. And we look forward to, next Bible study. Again, I still have these books that are going to be coming this coming Shabbat for two of our sisters. And so I pray that you enjoy these books. All right. And so once again, Congregation Rehoboth's Parasha tonight